We're using the sun, soil, water, and air to teach everything that we eat and everything that we wear. Now, these are kids that I worked with in the early 2000s, or actually it was in the late 90s. So the video quality is not that great. We didn't have iPhones at the time, but they're going to tell you a little bit about what they think about gardening.
Really cool because it's not just, fun. It's not just, playing and stuff. You also get to learn a lot of
Get
things.
educated.
So it's kind of like double package. You get two things in
But
one.
it is also fun.
Yeah.
It's also fun.
It's not just all fun. It's not just all learning.
Isn't that true? It's not, it's not all learning. It's fun. It's a mix of it all. And that's what we want to create. In education, it's all about the kids. And kids deserve the best instructional tool. And the garden is a master teacher, and it is one of the best instructional tools we can work with. Kids are learning magnets. They're curious. They have lots of energy. And a garden fuses that all together. So it's a place where there's loads of teachable moments. It's stimulating, but stimulating in a way that children can focus and learn. By gardening, we can cultivate in children a love of nature, healthy foods, and learning. It's more than just creating a great environment. We want to bring learning to life in the garden. So what other instructional tool can you measure, graph, record, sing about, write about, and hypothesize in? What educational tool rots and reproduces at the same time, is edible and solar powered? What educational tool can withstand the elements, is full of hundreds, if not thousands of living creatures, follows the seasons, not always predictable, and is connected to every single human culture in the world? It's the garden. And it's not just a unique instructional tool, it's an effective instructional tool. So this is a great image from one of our books, The Growing Classroom, that we published in 1982. We just put out our 4th edition, but it really shows what I was just talking about, all the different ways we connect to learning in a garden setting. And if you go onto Google and search LifeLab Garden Pathways, you can get yourself one of these little maps to put up. So the research does show that participants in school gardens have higher GPAs. It shows that students have more positive attitudes. Has anybody experienced this? I mean, I've seen it in the video. I saw it yesterday. And also teacher surveys said that they see that children can learn more effectively. And there's lots of research out there. And if you go to lifelab.org/whyschoolgardens, I put all the research I find in one place. On the California School Garden Network's website, we have a database where we have hundreds of articles, and we link to summaries. We link to PowerPoint. So if you need to state the case, it is out there. And this story is not a news story. At the turn of the last century, have you ever heard of the United States School Garden Army? It was the first attempt at a mandated curriculum across our whole United States. It was being pushed and promoted through the Department of War. It was all part of the Victory Garden movement. There's 2 versions of the United States School Garden Army, and if you look on Google Books, you'll find dozens of school garden manuals. We're recreating them right now, but they were all put out back then. They were a little bit different. They weren't doing organic. They were using arsenic and things like that. Total different situation, so let's use the books we have now. But there's some great campaign materials. Soldiers of the Soil, Raising Myself in My School Garden Army. Don't use arsenic in your garden. So this concept is all summed up really great with a quote by George Washington Carver. I'm going to share that with you. The garden furnishes an abundance of subject matter for use in the composition, spelling, reading, arithmetic, geography, and history classes. A real bug found eating on the child's cabbage plant in his little garden will be taken up with a vengeance in his composition class. He would much prefer to spell the real living radish in the garden than the lifeless radish in the book. He would much prefer to figure on the profit of the onions sold from his garden than those sold from some John Jones of Philadelphia. And seeing your school garden farmer markets, it is so incredible to see real life skills being applied through the garden. The kids are germinating the seed, they're harvesting the plants, they're probably nibbling them along the way, and then they get to go out and do the math and communicate with the community as they're selling. If you're looking for books related to garden-based learning, on the bottom there, that link, the California School Garden Network's website, garden-based literature, you can search for that. We have links to hundreds of book resources, lists for K-12, where you can find books that connect to agriculture and gardening. And I highly, highly recommend you to have a library in your garden. It's a great thing if you got a kid that's just not maybe cooperating that well, you can send them into the reading corner of the garden. So get some books out in your garden. So now I'm going to share a lot of what we just saw in the video. A LifeLab garden is, so an educational garden. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into what students can actually learn from a garden. And as I mentioned, LifeLab started 1979. It started in a school garden, Green Acres Elementary School, aptly named. It's still running, that garden. It might be one of the longest continual running school gardens in the nation. And at Green Acres Elementary School, these educators back in the day decided that, hey, this garden is an incredible place for learning. It's just abounding with life and learning. And their principal mandated that for 1 year, after they converted an empty lot into a thriving garden space, the principal mandated that for 1 year, all teachers participate. And it took off. And from there, the nonprofit LifeLab was formed. So we have this little saying, a LifeLab garden is a place where students, and then we're going to look at some topics. So students can observe the workings of a diverse ecosystem firsthand. So the garden is a microcosm of the earth. So the sun, soil, water, and air, everything we eat, everything we wear, it's all happening there in the garden. And this is so, so important, especially for kids in urban areas. This might be their first experience to see living animals like caterpillars, birds, hopefully not rats, bugs like ladybugs, or the excitement of a praying mantis. It's often a place where students get their first opportunity to pick something straight from the soil and eat it and understand that dirt is more than dirt. Dirt is soil, which provides everything that we eat. I think of gardens as a mini zoo or a mini farm. We were working with a school garden in LA where it was all blacktop. And over the weekend, some large machinery came in and they removed the blacktop. And we all know what's under blacktop, right? There's dirt. It's soil. It's everything that sustains us. And on Monday, the kids came back and they saw this space that had been excavated, and they asked their teachers, like, where did all that stuff come from? They really needed a garden at that school, and they got it. So the Earth's processes they're live. They're on display all the time. There's no better place to study Earth and life sciences than in the Earth and life. And there's really a big difference between knowing about something and knowing something. That happens in the garden. An example of that happens with the students I teach, where we take the leftovers from our school meal program and from a local restaurant, and the kids take that green material and they put it in the compost pile, and they chop it up with their spades, and they take giant, huge, long compost thermometers, and they take the temperature of compost piles that they have named Bob and Bob Jr. They write down that data, and they're actually seeing that material transform from green leftovers from the kitchen into soil that then they sift and put into the garden as we plant the next crop of lettuce. Those students know that matter cycles. Some schools have mandated screen time. Get on your computers, take your tests on screens. And don't get me wrong, I like my screen time, but I think we should have mandated dirt time. You guys are the conduit for that. In a school garden, children take pride in their ability to create a place of beauty and ecological significance. Here's the photos. What other place in your school campus can students actually take ownership of? That can say, I built that cob bench, or I came on the weekend and I painted that mural with my family. This was just reiterated to me last week. I was at a school garden at lunch with a garden coordinator, and some boys came out into the garden to be a part of the garden. This boy, unfortunately, his teacher doesn't take him out to the garden, but he brought me over to a hot pepper plant, and he said, I bought that pepper plant with my own money. And then he brought me over to another garden bed, and he said, I bought that tomato with my own money. He's bringing and investing in the garden. He's making it part of his own. It's a pretty cool experience. And it doesn't just happen with kids, it happens with parents as well, right? So our parents might not feel comfortable in the classroom and saying, I know about English language arts, or I know about history for the 3rd or 4th grade. But we have parents that can design websites and help your garden. We have parents that can paint murals. We have parents that are carpenters, that are in the industry to do irrigation. We have parents that can help raise money. We have parents that could design floral bouquets and put them in the office so that a little bit of the culture of the garden is carried throughout. So gardens build community. And this is actually one of your pledges of achievements. I looked into those for Clark County Schools. Pledge of Achievement Goal 4, it says increase percentage of parents feeling welcome at school. If you can tie them into the garden and they have ownership of that garden, they will feel more welcome at your school. And along the way, we're creating a caretaking ethic for our students. Maria Montessori, a renowned educator, has this quote: "When he knows that the life of the plants that have been sown depends upon his care in watering them, the child becomes vigilant as one who is beginning to feel a mission in life." Students also discover the connection between themselves and their peers. So you guys are the educators. How many of you have a student that in the classroom, in the four walls, the student's a little bit more trouble than when they're outside? Raise your hand if you've seen that happen. I don't know what it is, but some kids just do better in an outdoor setting. It gives them an opportunity to thrive in a different way than an indoor setting. We see kids come out and become helpers. There's lunchtime clubs. I just learned that you guys have before school garden clubs. There's opportunities for buddy teaching where fifth graders could be teaching kinder. And in school gardens, it's something that students never forget. And I know that living in Santa Cruz, where LifeLab was founded, when I meet adults that went to local elementary schools, I ask them, did you have a LifeLab? And then they smile. And they say, yeah, that's the first place I ate a carrot, right out of the ground. Or, oh yeah, that was one of my favorite things to do. Our teacher brought us out there all the time. I always felt happy in the garden. And by the way, that's one of your pledge of achievements, goal number 5. We want to increase the percentage of students who feel safe and happy at school, and gardens can provide that refuge. How many of you have experienced that? Kids come out, volunteer their time, they come to garden clubs voluntarily. It happens, it sucks kids in. This is one of the most important elements of school gardening we see it happen lately, is the whole idea of connecting gardens to healthy eating. We have an obesity epidemic in our country, and by using gardens through Nutrition Ed, we can have some great achievements of getting kids to try things that they might not have tried before, like this boy eating his 6-plant part burrito. We're up against a lot. 70% of the food ads on the most popular children television channels are for junk foods. The statistics are worse for websites that are marketed to children. Companies spend about $2 billion marketing food to kids, and $300 million of that is for junk food. And research indicates that children don't understand the persuasive nature of advertisements until age 8. You see that boy eat that carrot? That was just last week. So we're up against a lot. There are marketing pressures among the kids. There's superstars that are selling soda pop and candy bars to kids. The amount of advertising they're seeing for things that are unhealthy is more than for things that are healthy. If we can bring kids out in a garden setting and expose them to positive experiences like that boy shoving a carrot in his face, and if we can give them opportunities, more opportunities to eat fruits and vegetables, we're going to have a better pushback against all that's coming to these children in terms of the negative ads that are trying to get them to eat junk. Side note here, NBA MVP Stephen Curry, he just signed a contract with Brita water filters, and he's promoting water. Multi-million-dollar contract. So, shout out for Steph Curry. We put on our Facebook page a great video of him with kids in Oakland Unified School District promoting water. We need to see more of that. And we need to see you bringing kids out into the garden to eat these fruits and vegetables. An example of this, positive experiences with fruits and vegetables, I'll share something we do up at our farm program. We harvest beets with the kids. We cut the beet in half, and then we give them beet stamps. So you just take the beet and stamp it on their hand, and then we give them beet lipstick. And then they do beet makeup. They take over, and they've got beet all over their face. Then we take a different beet than the one we spread all over their body, and we slice it up thinly, and we either give them the little sample right there, or we put it in a 6-plant part burrito that is a shell, or the burrito skin is a leaf, and we put all the other 6-plant parts in there, roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds, and we eat that 6-plant part burrito. And then what happens next is parents are like, how'd you get my kid to eat beets? How'd you get my kid to eat kale? Because we know if they grow it, they'll try it. And we know that when they're eating it straight out of the garden, it tastes a little bit better. So let's talk about science. In a garden setting, children become curious, ask questions, and seek answers through their own research and observation. And students are practicing science in a living laboratory. We hear about science in the popular media or on the Discovery Channel. It's the answer. It's already what's been found, like, hey, this is the gas on some faraway planet, or this is the life cycle of some bug that some researchers had figured out. But that answer is not actually science. True science is the questioning and figuring it out. True science is what the science and engineering practices of next generation science are asking our students to do. The things that we're asking students to do is observe things, create arguments from evidence, use models, plan and conduct experiments, interpret data, construct explanations, and share information. And we can do all of that in a garden setting. Some examples that I do with my students, my K1 kids, we take different pots that have large and small holes on them, and we cover flower bulbs as they're emerging out of the ground, and we're starving the plants of light. And depending on the pot, some lights let in more light, and some pots were taped off and don't let any light in. And then we go every week and observe what's happening, and the kids see that if a plant is starved from light, it doesn't survive. And that's actually in the next generation science standards. They want to learn that light causes plants to grow. Another activity that I've done with kids is fertility trials on lettuce. We serve salad in our school meal program every single day. And we actually have a really cool school meal program at my kids' school. For the last 30 years, kids cook every meal. 5th and 6th graders cook lunch for 100 kids every single day. It's called Food Lab. It's pretty cool. So we wanted to become expert salad growers, lettuce growers, and harvest as much salad as we possibly can to put in the lunch. And so we did fertility trials where we were doing our compost that we created and store-bought fertility, like a Dr. Earth kind of organic compost. And the kids tracked the leaf growth of romaine lettuce over time. We found out that the vegan compost mix did the best. Another thing that I'm doing recently right now with my students is we're looking at one branch. A team of kids get one apple tree to look at, and they're looking at one branch on that apple tree, observing the buds change from bud to flower to fruit. And along the way, we're also watching the interaction of the pollinators and taking census data of the pollinators that visit the tree in a 5-minute period. So many opportunities to engage in the real practices of science. So I encourage you to set up some sort of long-term observation. Those opportunities are all throughout your garden all the time. And track and observe the data that the garden is providing to you. So, this quote I share a lot. It's my quote: creating and sustaining school gardens is not an easy task, but actually Green Our Planet has made it an easy task. So you guys are pretty lucky. All the corporate partners that you found here as well have really helped out in learning more and more about what is supporting your gardens. It's quite impressive what's going on here. You guys are ahead of the curve. Only 3 years in, but you're ahead of the curve. There is no real home or institutional home for school gardens in a school. Right? Administrators are administrating, custodians are cleaning, teachers are managing classrooms. But who is that person that takes on the school garden? Well, the answer is there's not one person, it's a team, and there's not one model. But we do know that people are the heart of school gardens. It takes a team to create that culture of garden-based learning. And I've learned a lot just yesterday visiting your school gardens. You all here are most likely a part of a team that's making school gardens happen. But I want to share a couple models that I've seen across the nation that have sustained school gardens. In my district, Santa Cruz City Schools, we passed a parcel tax. We tax ourselves for education, so it's for music programs and instructional aides and PE teachers, but we wrote in our school garden coordinators. We only have 4 elementary schools, but all those full schools have a part-time paid garden coordinator for 9 years, and we just re-upped the parcel tax for another 9 years. Another model that I like to share a lot is what happened in Washington, D.C., the Healthy Schools Act. They floated a sweetened beverage tax. So soda pop's being taxed 1 cent per ounce, and that money goes to farm-to-school and school garden programs, $4 million a year. Berkeley just did the same thing, and we're trying to do that in Watsonville, California right now. So there are lots of different ways to make this happen. You have some leaders working with you with Green Our Planet. I encourage you to continue to do this work You guys are truly planting the seed of change in your district. I encourage you to look for those teachable moments out in your garden setting, and I know that you're the champions. In here, there are lots of those champions. So once again, thank you for providing the seeds of change for yourself and your students. Thanks for being here.